Okay, so now the next small excerpt will be how the officiants leave the crown. Let's see. And enunciate their personal wish.
Imánk az Isten újra megtalálja. Köszönts ma népem, üdvöd hajnalát!
Én, Géci Gábor István, mielőtt leveszem Gabriel arkangyal maszkját, azt üzenem nektek, hogy nincs lejjebb, és nincs tovább. Eljött az idő a magyarság feltámadására. Ehhez kívánok nektek erőt, hitet és szeretetet. Így legyen.
So what happened? This officiant identified himself, who he really is beyond the figure he was representing or impersonating. Yeah. So in the beginning, they're completely anonymous, they're uniformized, and then they present themselves. So they become individuals, they assume their names, they present themselves. And this calls our attention to this contrast between this impersonality and the individuals who are able to participate in this ritual. It gives particular dynamics to it, but this cannot be directly observed during the ritual action. What we can see, it can be, the impression it gives is that it's some kind of a gathering of artists, maybe actors, or it looks like some kind of artistic performance and not necessarily a ritual. But the preparation of the ceremony reveals its real stakes. So now we can speak about the recording I was able to watch after Gábor Pop's lecture, when we watched this film, this recording of the 2003 ceremony. So former and prospective participants gathered in this building, which is an organic restaurant, which is located at an organic farm near Debrecen, Balmazújváros, so in the east of Hungary, the big Hungarian plain. And they gathered to prepare this ceremony, which took place in August 2016, which was also filmed. What the interactions that took place during this preparation meeting reveal is that the ceremony doesn't really revolve around the crown, but it's rather focused on the people who take part in it, the men who get on the crown, and their personal qualities and dispositions. So there's a contrast between the public part of the ceremony and the private part, what we can see from the outside and what we can see from the inside, from the participants' point of view. So the interesting thing is, this is what I'm going to try to show you, is that it is really during this participation process that the effects of the ceremony can be actualized. And this implies the point of view of former participants, the point of view of those who already took place in the ceremony. Because the interesting part about the organization of this ceremony is that we see these men who climb up the crown, but the interesting thing that we can discover during these preparation meetings is that anyone can participate only once in their lifetime. So for every ceremony they have to gather new participants. And that this is a really unique occasion, but we cannot see that because all participants are anonymous. They could be anyone. They could be the same or different ones, but they're really, really carefully chosen or prepared. So how the ceremony can be effective during a meeting which has nothing to do with the ceremony itself? This is what we will see. And what it's revealing also in these meetings is that the crown is, during this whole process, the crown is less important than how individual participants can be affected by the crown, which is not the real crown, but its representation. So the whole ritual revolves around the skills of and the willingness of participants to be affected by the crown, and not the crown itself. What happens in this organic restaurant is that, and we have to speak about two things. So we have to get back to Pope Gabor's lecture when he showed the 2003 film, because the two events are not are really connected. These are not separate events. So what he said about the ritual is that, and he emphasized the importance of being prepared to the ceremony, because it really had an idea of transformation, that people are not the same before and after the ritual. So he said, when one gets off the crown, he's no longer the same person, and for them it's self-evident. So the officiants, the men who climb up the crown, are not expected to be in an ordinary state of consciousness when they leave the crown. Mm-hmm. 10 minutes, okay. So, but how can this happen? Because what we saw is that people put on masks and gowns, so these are really straightforward actions. So what happens to these people? And this is what we learned during this preparation meetings, is that this ceremony is full of risks. One of them is to fall off the crown structure, because this doesn't really happen often, but their masks don't have holes for the eyes. So they have to rehearse, and they really have to focus on what they're doing, otherwise they might stumble and fall off. This only happened once, and it was interpreted as this man's inaptitude of taking part of this ritual, his lack of preparation. He didn't belong on the crown. And the same applies to the event, to the possibility that somebody cancels their participation to the ceremony. So this, for them, this is a proof that this person does not belong there. They're not prepared. If they were there, the ceremony might be compromised and unsuccessful. Another important element in the choice of participants is that they suppose an affinity between the men who impersonate the icons and the icons themselves. So these can be astrological affinities, but often it's a name. It's quite simple to find people who are called George, Peter, Thomas. These are pretty common names, but it's more difficult to find a Constantine, but it can be an affinity in the sonority of names. So what I learned at one of these preparation ceremonies is that they were speaking about how to choose participants or how to, and Lajos Szántai explained that this is how, it's because of the sonority of the name that a person named Koncz István took on the role of Constantine, Koncz István Constantine, or in the role of Cosmas, who is a saint doctor, they chose a blacksmith, and the explanation was that a blacksmith can forge together what is broken, just as a doctor can fix a person who is ill. Yes. At this 2016 ceremony, the people who took part in the ritual were all persons who were trying to introduce ancient techniques in agriculture. So there was a wine grower, there were organic farmers, there was this blacksmith, and these people were respected because of their efforts to bring back traditional techniques. And in general, people who take part in this ceremony are people who have some kind of prestige in their community. So in previous ceremonies, I could identify sportsmen. There was a hospital director who is completely neo-pagan, but that's another story. The mayor of a town, and a Protestant minister also. So these are respectful people who have achieved something in their lives, so they do not, they're not supposed to depend on a ritual participation to show that they do something for their community. So why take part in this ritual? What's the point? And yes, and why I put this man with the arch there is because this man is one of the most respected persons in this pagan renewal, because he reinvented archery, mounted archery. And once the ceremony was organized on his domain in the south of Hungary. He has animals, he has a farm there. So he had space for the ceremony, and he was present at this preparation ceremony. I was able to see preparation meeting. I'm sorry. So these preparation meetings consist of the presentation of prospective participants. So this is how I learned that the people who would take part in the 2016 ceremony were blacksmiths, winemakers, organic farmers, and so on. They presented themselves with their name, they presented their work, and they're willing to participate in the ceremony. And in the second part, former officiants spoke, and they gave admonitions to prospective participants, so warnings about how they should participate. And they spoke about the way they prepare themselves very shortly. So there weren't any indications if one should meditate or fast. So there's nothing compulsory before. There's no special diet to be followed. So everybody prepares themselves as they feel. So there are no exact rules for that, which makes it all the more difficult to be well prepared, because you don't know what you have to do. You have to feel what you have to do. And so there was this emphasis on participants' intentions, to have the right intentions of participating, and the state of mind. So they should be focused and pay attention and be well prepared. And they also spoke, and especially Gábor Pap, in his first lecture, about the miracles that can happen and also mishaps, so mistakes that can happen during a ritual. Well, miracles can be, as an example, is that once they organized the ceremony in the Pilis Mountains in wintertime, and it was snowing, so it was really, really difficult to carry the crown structure, and they weren't sure if they would make it to the ceremony's chosen space or place, to the right spot before dusk. So if they arrived later, they would have to cancel the ceremony. So it was quite a risk, but they managed to carry the crown structure, and everything went on just fine. So this was a miracle. And mishaps, well, the example of the man who fell off the structure is the most clear one. Yes. So actually, they insist a lot on this being prepared element, which is quite unclear. It's quite opaque. This all looks like a menace. So actually, new participants are reminded of the risks they are taking. Their attitude of becoming exemplary magyars is completely challenged during these meetings. So that they're always reminded that, attention, you might not succeed, you might ruin the ceremony. But the interesting thing is that, and here I quote this Lajos Kassai, so the mounted archer's speech at this meeting. He was speaking about how great a responsibility it is to take part in this ceremony, and how important the group's common intentions were. And the importance to have a common will for a successful ceremony, and to be united. And he opposed this to a possible division between participants, which in this case, in the case of the ceremony that he organized at his farm, was between pagans and Christians, because some of the participants wanted to organize a fire walking before the ceremony. And Christians weren't so keen on fire walking, because so Christians, as a quote, so there were two fractions of people. One group wanted to fire walk, which means, I'm not sure if you know what that is that they're burning charcoals on the ground, and you have to walk on barefoot, so it's a really challenging thing, and there were people who didn't want to do that. So there was this division, and this generated an awkwardness between participants, which was opposed to the importance of the common will, the unity, and the harmony between all participants. So in this, what we can recognize is that, or what we can observe, is that by speaking in such way, Lajos Kassai demonstrated that he was an exemplary officiant. Why? Because he could recognize the correct conduct that new participants should observe while participating in the ritual. So they should be united, well prepared, etc., etc. And this was based on his previous ritual experience. So this makes Lajos Kassai, this archer man, a well-prepared person, in contrast to the people who haven't participated in the ritual yet. So, in this case, I hope this is clear. Do you have? It's okay? Okay. So in this case, to be a magyar, it's not an ideological matter or a question of political choice, but the successful outcome of a ritual ordeal. So this ritual puts persons Magyar identity to the test. It's not enough to be born Magyar, you have to prove it. Well, this would be the end of my presentation, and I hope I have managed to call your attention to the importance of analyzing rituals' internal dynamics, and I hope I have managed to inspire you in your own observations on ritual practice. So, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to write to Riki, who will put us in contact. Thank you for your attention and
Thank
keep safe.
you!
Thank you.